Girls, what makes a guy creepy? When a guy won't give you your space, even when you implicitly or explicitly make it clear that you want your space. Without giving too many details, when I was younger, the sweet guy became creepy to me because he wouldn't leave me alone even when I said I wanted time to myself. If they can't respect your boundaries, get out, and fast. Also, if they expect you to explain your boundaries. I'm not sure if creepy is the right word, but it's downright unattractive. I was becoming kind of close with this frat boy. He invited me to semi-no strings attached. Very beginning, he was like, I know frats have a stigma, but I don't want to pressure you into anything at all. And I was like, no worries. When I don't want to do something, I flat out say no. Then he proceeded to challenge me every time I said no to something throughout the whole semi and every party I went to with him after that. I asked if he could hug me. I said I wasn't really comfortable with that. He waited like 5 minutes, then kept trying to hug me anyway. And I would be like, no, I don't want to do that. And he kept demanding to know why. Even would be like, so you don't like hugging? Why are you cool with hugging your parents then? Always tried to get me to drink more, and when I said I'm done, he'd want to know why. Tell me the party was just getting started, etc. Didn't bring a bathing suit to college, but that wasn't enough of an explanation for why I wouldn't go swimming with him and his brothers. I mean, I could just go in undergarments, right? If I didn't want grass, I had to explain why. If I didn't want ALC when his frat bro was going to get some, he wanted to know why. If I didn't want to go to a party, he's trying to get me to explain why. He was always prying, like he was trying to get me to realize I don't have a good reason why. I don't know. Maybe he hoped that would cause me to change my mind? It was just downright disrespectful. Good job, buddy. I go out of my way to avoid you and most of your brothers now. I think the wanting to know why is a challenge for a lot of dudes. Story 2. When you don't reply immediately, he gets sad or needs something from you or texts to make you feel bad. I went on a few dates with a very needy and insecure guy. Unfortunately, I worked with him too, which was a bad choice. Don't date coworkers. But I didn't realize how bad it was at first. He'd get super upset if I didn't reply to his texts right away or spend all my free time talking to him. One day I just wanted some space and didn't really feel like talking to people. Normal introverted things. So I told him that I didn't feel like talking and that I'd see him the next day at work. Nope. He kept calling me over and over again. So eventually I just answered the phone and told him to stop and then hung up. Didn't stop, so I blocked his number. The next day at work, he tried to talk to me, telling me that what I did really hurt his feelings. All guilt-trippy. While I'm working, not even on a break, I'm just like, no, this isn't the time or place for this. After that, I realized just how messed up he was and broke it off and just ignored his existence until he quit a few weeks later. Haven't seen him since, and I ain't mad. Yeah, that dude is seriously unhealthy. Story 3. Not respecting boundaries. Not listening and not treating you like an equal human being are my top 3 red flags. Respecting boundaries means they don't invade your personal space. Common rules of society are followed and they don't keep pushing to touch or interact or initiate conversations or relationships. If you're hovering around me, trying to distance me from safety or my friends, keep staring at me, following me after I say no, etc., you are a creep to me. I sense danger and am uncomfortable with this. Stop. No hugging. Get away. Listening is a crucial skill in general, but tells me whether or not I want to be near you or if you respect me. Not listening or treating my opinions as valid means you're probably not someone who understands no and may try to manipulate or hurt me. I'm not a piece of meat, a potential layer of someone's property. Respect me as your equal and human. The scariest creeps don't seem to see you as human. You're their object, something to chase. Fourth, that isn't always the case, is a lack of social awareness or being oblivious of social rules, as it can lead to uncomfortable misunderstandings, or much worse, when combined with the other 3. Story 4. Acting like you're a different person if you have a push-up garment or makeup on. Double if they only notice you or treat you nicely that way. To clarify what I mean and what guys I'm talking about, the creepy guys in this case are usually a casual acquaintance who may be dating or married or only known in a professional way, or have clearly stated they're not into you and just a friend. Obviously, if I'm talking about a dude I'm flirting with and they amp it up because I'm dressing up for them, is different. I'm also not talking about when I go out and more strangers approach. I know I'm going to get more attention dressed up in general than when I'm not. I am specifically referring to men who have seen me before and after and will only interact in a positive way if I'm conventionally attractive, and otherwise won't acknowledge my existence. These guys should not change given the nature of the relationship because it's not romantic or physical in nature. Examples of what I meant. The guys, often boyfriends, friends, or coworkers, saying you look sickly without makeup. Making a huge deal if you wear makeup or anything more overtly feminine when it's not their place. i.e., a coworker fixating on your outfit and not just a casual compliment, literally assuming you're not straight after you cut your hair or not speaking to you till it's an acceptable length, literally not recognizing you because of a push-up garment, literally not recognizing you due to makeup, trying to verify you more because of these changes, pats on the arm, side hugs you wouldn't normally get, treating you in an entirely different way, all of a sudden discussing their life or relationships and making lots of crude jokes. This goes in regards to coworkers specifically. I know my friends may need or have reason to chat about these things. Another example. A cool casual friend one day to a love interest the next, due to these things, then reverting back to casual friend in the span of an outfit change. These are all real damn examples. A huge chunk has happened in my place of work or with people who have explicitly said they're not into me. Also, I typically dress pretty modestly at work given my career field. It's not an appropriate place for fixation on my outfits or to make more than a passing compliment given I work in front of teenagers. I may dress up for my partner or for me. The whole world shouldn't change just because of that. I'm okay with a few extra head turns or getting more compliments. I'm not okay with fixation and you switching your entire damn personality. If you didn't have the time of day for me before, and after now finding me fascinating, I know it's not my thoughts you give two care about. This also goes along the line with being a woman's friend while she's single, then ghosting the second she's in a relationship. It's like, once I'm not easy to you, I mean nothing. It goes back to the root of creepiness, not treating women like people. Story 5. Once a co-op student, I was a senior engineer, cornered me in our tiny coffee room to tell me he didn't understand why I changed my hair. He liked it better blonde. At 5'2", it's 8 in the morning, and I'm cornered by a kid who has never spoken a word to me before but is 6'2" easily, and I can't get around him. I also had another co-op student breathe on the back of my neck while I was doing some material testing as a way of getting my attention, or he said he would help me if I helped him. He was my co-op student. He literally got paid to help me. This kid had finally threatened to report to his school and said I would trash his professionalism grade if he tried that again. It didn't help until I made it clear to all my co-ops that allowing him to act that way would affect their professionalism grades too. Then he behaved. Even though I was the senior person in both circumstances, their lack of respect for space and their clear flirting was so out of place. Given their size, it could be really intimidating, especially since I often got in early or worked late, and that is when these kids would choose to be creepy. Story 6. I was talking to this guy on OkCupid. We went on one date, but what gave me the creeps was that at least 4 times in the 2 weeks we were chatting online before the date, he kept saying he liked my hair straightened, all because of one photo I had of me with straight hair. I was so not straightening my hair for the date. The date ends and he asks if there will be a second one. I was too polite to straight up say no. I said we will see, and we both left separately. After that, he messaged me multiple times a day asking the same questions and asking why I wasn't talking. I disabled my account for a month or so, but when I came back, he had asked why I disabled my account. He kept messaging me multiple times a day. I eventually blocked him. He sounded way too controlling. I definitely dodged that. Story 7. I'm bi. If I ever dare mention this to a straight guy for any reason, he will either ask if I want to have a triad with him and his girlfriend or comment how my boyfriend must be so lucky that he can have a triad with me. Once I was talking to a man and the topic came up, and he lamented how lucky I am to be bi because his girl just won't let him bring another girl home. She's so uncomfortable about the idea of sleeping with another girl for him. So I asked him, well, why don't you sleep with another guy for her? Then maybe she'll be okay with another girl. He argued, but that's different. Don't get me wrong. I would, at some point in my life, like to have a triad, but I hate that that is the first thing that guys go to. They ask me and they never actually have their girlfriend present or ask her first. I'd be way more comfortable if the girl asked instead of the guy. Story 8. Men, we get it. Women can be hard to read. Please learn to watch for and understand body cues. Women tend to be polite in uncomfortable situations because we fear how men will retaliate if we aren't. So a woman you're speaking to might keep answering your questions and even laugh or smile, but if she constantly looks away, avoids eye contact, looks down at her phone, or leans away when you lean in, please back off. Body language will let you know how we're actually feeling. I take public transportation a lot, and men will sometimes begin to talk to me even though I have big headphones on. I will take them off, politely answer a question, then put them back on. This should be a clear sign that means, I'm done with this conversation, thank you. I can't believe the amount of times that a man will continue to try talking to me. I've had to pretend to get off the train and move to a different car multiple times, because questions started becoming invasive despite me trying as hard as I can to politely disengage. Story 9. Speaking too quietly for the situation is an excuse to stand too close. Leering. There's a difference between someone staring at me as if I will be the next addition to their ungodly collection. Guys who are legitimately uncomfortable with how proficient I am with my pocket weapon make me think that they were hoping to do things that might cause me to use said pocket weapon. I work retail and have had customers ask for me by name and leave without buying anything when they find out I'm not there, and then waste my time with dumb questions when I am there. After a long conversation about how happy I am in my current relationship, say, "Your husband doesn't treat you right. I'll take you away." After all I said about my personal life is that I was married. Wait until my coworkers were out of earshot to ask if I want to be friends, then hovering continuing to talk about how we should be friends. And then, after I got a coworker to help said customer, saying things about me to my coworker that my coworker wasn't comfortable telling me. Rinse and repeat every couple of months. Try to tuck money into one of my pockets after I said that accepting a tip would get me fired. Story 10. Asking us out in the undergarment section of Walmart and staring. Made me a little uncomfortable when a guy did this, and then I kept awkwardly running into him throughout the grocery area. Eventually, he whispered from an aisle I was passing, gave me the come here motion so he could, again, persistently tell me how pretty I was and that he didn't want it to seem creepy that he wouldn't take no for an answer. He kept stressing how much he wanted my number. I got some weird vibes from the way he talked, so instead I gave him my Snapchat, which I barely use and has no personal info in it. This satisfied him enough to let me check out in peace. I blocked him after an hour of chatting, which was mainly him ranting about his sad life and low self-esteem. His words. It got to the point where he wouldn't stop begging to talk on the phone and got really angry when I kept refusing. I'll never forget his last text. "Can I at least call you so I can vent about this?" Story 11. I bumped into a colleague when I was on a night out with friends. He asked if I had a boyfriend, to which I replied I was engaged and had a child. He laughed, maniacally. The next weekend, he found me on social media and messaged me asking to go out with him and his friends. I didn't reply, so the next morning he messaged me again to ask if I'd been out the night before. This continues every weekend for a few months. He then reduced the messages to one weekend a month. Considering I had not answered even one of his messages and had mentioned my partner multiple times in verbal conversations, it came across as creepy. The messages then stopped for a few months. In 2019, I was pregnant with my second when he messages me again, asking if I have a boyfriend. By this point, I was a very noticeable 7 months pregnant. I worked in the same building and saw each other at least 3 times a week, and I was wearing our very distinctive maternity uniform. He is the creepiest man I've met by far. Story 12. I'm a guy, but my best friend is a girl, and she has a guy at work that constantly leaves notes in her locker. He's convinced that me and her are dating, so he's always rude to me. In his letters, he talks about me and how I don't want to push you into the arms of another man like my name. He also texted her one day saying, "I changed your name in my phone to Delicious," then refers to her as D on a regular basis, even though her name doesn't start with a D. He cornered her in a room once after she told him she was not interested and started slamming things and throwing things. I took her out with me one day and she got a small cut when she took it like a champ, and he found out and came up to me and tried to stand over me. I'm taller than him but skinnier, and said, "If you hurt her again, it will be the last thing you do." As he tried to squeeze my hand and I simply replied, "Do not threaten me." Really creepy guy. And it's awful for my friend because she's super sweet. He doesn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but it truly gives her anxiety just thinking about working with him. Story 13. I know this isn't all of them, but from my experience, insisting that I have a conversation with him whenever I'm around. Sometimes I just happen to be there. I don't always want to have a conversation every time I step into a room or log into an online account. Even if I have the time to and choose to do something else, that doesn't mean I don't enjoy his company. I just don't always have the energy for a pointless conversation. It's gone to the point where I've specifically asked people to turn off their notifications because one guy kept trying to message me every time I did something on Twitter. He started to get upset with me whenever I chose to just watch YouTube videos and live streams in my free time, because I guess I could always just say hi or message him while watching or something. Also, he responded to every comment, tweet, and retweet I did, which, even if well-intentioned, freaked me out. Maybe I'm paranoid, but I gave off the feeling like he was watching my every move. I didn't use Twitter for months, and I've since stopped almost altogether. People have lives. Do something with your own. It doesn't make you uninteresting if someone's not in the mood to talk. Story 14. I think it's 75% context, even more than content. Obviously saying bizarre or threatening things. Encroaching on physical boundaries or not taking no for an answer will make anything creepy. Not creepy also doesn't guarantee you a positive reaction. Not creepy could still be wildly inappropriate and ill-advised for other reasons, but even if you're considering purely the creepiness factor of any particular neutral approach, I think there's a sort of 2D plot of inherent creep factor that could be made with level of familiarity on one axis and socialness of situation on the other. Such that in one corner you have a good friend at a house party, and in the opposite you have stranger on the street at night. You could add a z-axis for social or physical threat level, with your 30 years older boss on one end and a little kid with a crush on the other. Fellow intern? Not creepy. Landlord? Creepy. Neighbor at the grocery store? Not creepy. Last week's Uber driver at the grocery store? Creepy. Strangers at a nightclub? Not creepy. Stranger in the public bus? Creepy. This isn't limited to guys approaching girls for purposes either. The same goes for any genders, and the same goes for any time you want to approach someone to ask them for something. Overall, magnitude of creepiness might look different for different requests, but the same plot could be made for trying to sell people stuff, asking people to donate to your political cause, or asking people for restaurant recommendations. Story 15. Disrespecting or outright ignoring either a no or a stated boundary. I've seen guys asking women out for drinks or a date or whatever, and the woman says no. The next response from these guys was, why not? Because it does not occur to them that no is a whole sentence. No woman, or anyone of any gender identity, as a matter of fact, is obliged to provide you feedback on why they do not find you attractive enough to date. No is not encouragement to further discussion. If she wants to tell you why, she will, but chances are you're just not her type or what she's looking for. That doesn't make you a creep. She's simply using her right to say no. It doesn't make her a witch or cold or any other insult that gets thrown at a woman by a certain type of man when she exercises her right to say no. When the no is not respected, it tells a woman that if he's not willing to respect the basic idea that she has the right to make her own decisions, he's unlikely to respect the big stuff around consent and boundaries. It's really awful to like someone and not have them like you back. It hurts, and there's no way around that. Sadly, Western society often does not teach men how to handle their negative emotions in a healthy way. Often does teach men and women that women are somehow commodities to be acquired rather than people to be respected. When you combine this, you get a certain section of men who cannot handle respect for rejection. I'm active in the scene in the UK, and as a result, I chose to surround myself with people who value communication, boundaries, and consent, because these are actively taught in the scene, and actively expected in the events I attend. Anyone not able to respect boundaries or consent, including withdrawal of consent if they're no longer enjoying themselves, is swiftly kicked out and will no longer be welcome at future events. Sometimes I feel we need that kind of social responsibility in wider society. Story 16. I'm 26 and I work in tech with mostly men. When I met my now husband, one of my male coworkers, who was 42, suddenly began commenting on my relationship and my appearance a lot more. He kept telling me that men are only ever after one thing, that the relationship wouldn't work out, that I was being naive and didn't understand how the world worked. For some context, he was single but trying to date, but hated dating women his age because they were all crazy and had too much baggage. He was a schmuck but had some redeeming qualities, so I usually brushed him off, and we stayed friends on social media. My husband was the perfect boyfriend, and I never felt unsafe or manipulated by him. After our engagement, I could see what my coworkers had seen, but he completely ignored me when I got back to work. We eloped a month later, short turnaround time, and I knew he saw it too. When I returned to work, my coworker was ignoring me completely. I didn't want or need the satisfaction of proving him wrong, despite the fact that he was so rude to me about my relationship and constantly trying to make me question it. I knew he'd had a crush on me, but the age difference and lack of emotional maturity on his end never allowed me to take him seriously. But the most annoying, the most creepy thing is that he made it evident to me that he only saw me as a romantic interest and could not accept me as a friend or celebrate my happiness. With an almost 20-year age gap between us, I found that to be inappropriate and rude. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 17. Guys that get overly friendly. I had a guy that started talking to me at the gym because he'd see me there often. That's fine, but every day he would find me and work out next to me and wouldn't stop talking to me. I repetitively told him to let me work out alone, and he refused or would just kind of hang around the area I was at. It got to the point that I changed my schedule because he would do it all the time. He would even stay later just to hang out, especially when I told him I just wanted to work out alone. One day he saw me at a store and started following me around the store, telling me he'd walk me to my car. I had enough. I told him to get off or I'd call the cops on him because he was being a creep. I canceled my gym membership and refused to go back. Story 18. Blocking exits was recently something I noticed happening to my work partner. We work in duos, but one of our delivery drivers, he would always block her path.
aggressively flirt, even sometimes come up behind her and whisper comments into her ear. She's a little 4'9" Puerto Rican woman, and she's feisty, and I ask her if she wanted me to do something about it. I never just do it, as I don't want to put the woman in an uncomfortable position. I let people fight their own battles unless they ask me for help. She said no, and that if he did it again, she'd snap. Just last week, he came up to her and said, "What's up, bad bitch?" And it was like a Krakatoa exploding. She went in. I've never seen a man's ego destroyed so heartily, so quickly. She then told HR, they pulled cameras, and you got let go that day. I was proud of my little homie. Story 19. Telling me personal things about myself. I had a guy at my old job mention that I took a different route to work one morning. Then he said a mix of letters and numbers. When I asked what that meant, he said, "That's your license plate, right?" Another time, he was standing behind me at the time clock and said my clock and code before I entered it. Also, he cornered me in a room and tried to kiss me. It was so awkward because his wife was my supervisor, and I was his superior. I was the nurse and he was the CNA. On top of that, I was a new nurse and not at all comfortable in my role yet. I ended up telling my coworkers to keep us apart and make sure he didn't follow me into rooms after that last part. Very creepy. Yo, that sounds like a restraining order. Story 20. Actually, I had a guy say, "I don't take no for an answer," to me after I told him I didn't want to go on a date with him. I walked away from him and back to my office. This was in a college campus building. I had a horrible feeling the rest of the day. Fast forward to quitting time and I have to walk half a mile to the parking garage. I saw a coworker about to head that way and asked if he didn't mind walking with me. Turns out the student followed us there and tried to get into my car when I unlocked it. Thank God I had my coworker with me who scared him away. Yes, the campus police were involved and the student was identified. He was banned from the building I worked in. Turns out 2 other girls had filed complaints about him as well. He followed one poor girl to her dorm, apparently. I honestly do not know what happened to him. I never saw him again. Story 21. It's disconcerting when people give unsolicited opinions about your appearance. For instance, a guy once told me, "Yeah, you're a 9 out of 10, but you'd be 10 out of 10 if you didn't have crooked teeth." Did I ask for his opinion? No, and I wasn't even trying to approach him romantically. Another issue is the lack of boundaries. Some people don't stop texting after being left unread multiple times or they get physically too close. It's important to respect personal space and signals that someone isn't interested in continuing the conversation. When someone is talking to me and keeps giving romantic compliments or comments, I'll be nice and civil because it's nice and can make my day. However, if they persist knowing I'm in a relationship or not interested in them, and they're going too far, despite my obvious discomfort, that's not okay. Compliments or not, if someone doesn't want to interact with you, they're allowed to. Nobody owes you anything. If they're mean, that's on them. Hating anyone else for no reason or just because they annoy you is unacceptable. These groups are simply existing, and making their already difficult lives harder is unnecessary and harmful. Any incel-like behavior is also problematic. It's important to treat everyone with respect and to be mindful of their comfort and boundaries. Perhaps my standards are too high, but I'm not a very social or outgoing person, so I get easily intimidated when approached. I just want to be treated with respect, and I try my hardest to make it clear when I'm uncomfortable. Many other women share similar experiences and feelings. Story 22. I don't care how late I am to this thread, but I had a very scary interaction summer before last. In the summer, food trucks come to a large park near where I work, and we will have planned outings for people in our office to go eat together. I was running behind and didn't leave with a group. For my job, I have to wear business casual in an attempt to cover a large tattoo, high-neck shirts, sensible heels, etc., not looking sexy. So I'm walking from my office to the park and a guy approaches me. I think he initially asked for a smoke, but I had only brought one and was smoking it. He then starts asking me where I'm going. Lunch with friends. Can you come with? No, I'm married. Can you buy me lunch? No, thank you. How he has his own money, it'll just be his friends, he wants to get to know me. Like, just hammered on me for 2 blocks wanting hugs and trying to invite himself to lunch. I'm starting to panic, looking for someone I know. I see no one. It's broad daylight and I'm scared. I finally just ran from him and he was smart enough not to follow. Story 23. I've only met a few guys that really creep me out, and they were both very similar. Ultra-religious and absolutely no effect in any situation. Ever. Whether something great or something objectively horrible was occurring, they acted in the exact same way. Both men could be really antsy, almost like someone with anxiety might behave, but they didn't believe in getting upset for religious reasons. Never uncomfortable, but could make everyone around them wildly uncomfortable. Both of them seemed to be able to turn on a personality when needed for certain important social interactions, but they were otherwise empty. No discernible interest outside of religion, no preferences in decor in their home or workspace, and little to no friends. Not being able to get a read on someone and feeling like they could have ended someone and come to work perfectly normal creeped me all the way out. Like lizards made really realistic human suits. Story 24. I got matched with this guy on Tinder and talked to him for about a month. He could not stop talking about his male friend. Every conversation we had, even intimate topics, would somehow end up being about his friend and his bromance with him. I low-key asked him if there was any intimacy between them, and he just laughed and said that he only loved him as a friend. Things got creepier when he told me that he's taking him to Sandals Resort in Jamaica and that they're gonna fake being a couple. This raised a very huge red flag for me, and also there was no chemistry between us, so I decided to slowly tell him that I don't think things are gonna work out between us. After telling him that I wanted to stop seeing each other, he got aggressive and told me that it'll be my loss and kept sending me mirror selfies and telling me that he's giving me my last chance for being with him. He kept contacting me until I blocked him from everywhere. Pretty creepy. Story 25. Back when I was online dating, I was talking to a guy who claimed to be wealthy. His picture was of a very good-looking man who was just my type and from a foreign country. Sexy accent. So the comments below about ugly or poor BS from the start. We hadn't been chatting via text for more than 2 days when he started slipping comments into our conversations about supporting me financially, moving in with him, how I didn't need to work anymore, and how he'd take care of me. He said I was perfect for him, and he was sure I was the one. Immediate, massive red flags. I don't need someone to take care of me. I can do that. Thanks. It was like offering someone money in exchange for a relationship, but without the honesty of saying it. Without even meeting me, he jumped from, "Hi, I'm John," to "Move in with me." Jumping too quickly into commitment, making declarations of love or affection immediately without getting to know the person at all. Remember, we hadn't even met in person. This made me wonder if he was trying to lure me in with too good to be true promises to do something horrible to me. I had no reason to doubt his picture, claims of career, and financial situation, except that someone that supposedly successful and good looking probably wouldn't need to troll for women online and jump from "Hi" to "I love you, come live with me right now" as the opening to a relationship. The whole thing was beyond creepy and weird. I blocked him from contacting me again. I wonder if he went to someone else and sincerely pray he didn't. I'd hate to think of what might have happened to her. Story 27. Approaching me without making eye contact first. If I'm staring at my phone or talking to a friend, that's a clear sign that I'm not open to a random conversation with you. If we make eye contact first and then you approach, at least I'm aware that you are there and I'm prepared, and arguably open for an interaction. Even still, it's best not to approach unless we've made eye contact and I've smiled or done something else to indicate I'm open to talking to you. The worst is when a guy approaches from behind or outside of my line of sight. It feels so predatory to have a guy come from behind. It always makes me feel automatically on guard. You're not going to get a positive response from me this way. Even worse is when they can't read the body language or verbal signs. Short, no response. Just because I'm responding to you doesn't mean I want to interact with you. It means I'm afraid that you will do something extreme if I don't pacify you with my attention. I'm scared and uncomfortable. Please leave me alone. Story 28. Guys who approach you while you're at work can be incredibly uncomfortable. I've had numerous men, who are 3 times my age, blatantly hit on me while I'm ringing them up at my retail job. Like, dude, you're old enough to be my father or grandfather. I don't want your advances. For example, I got my first job at Dunkin' Donuts. I was working the evening shift, so I was the only one behind the counter. My coworker was in the back. An older man came in and started asking me a bunch of personal questions like, what's my last name and where I live. He told me that I reminded him of one of his students because I have beautiful blue eyes just like her and asked if we were related. Then he asked if I was French. I didn't give him any of my information. I was quite scared. He then proceeded to tell me that he was in a band and gave me a CD. I left that CD in the Dunkin' Donuts because I was quite freaked out by this and I didn't want the CD. Then I got a different job in retail at a clothing store. And last summer, I was working a late shift. It was 9 p.m. and some old man came in. He was chatting with me and it took a long time at the register because he kept moving very slowly. He handed me each item of clothing one at a time and would touch my hands every time. He was also asking me personal questions about where I live and what my full name is. He also asked me if I was from the Midwest because I seemed so pure and innocent. I'm not from the Midwest, but I didn't tell him that. About halfway through the transaction, one of my coworkers noticed what was going on and came up to the register and started folding clothes right next to me. like not even 3 feet away. I was very grateful for that. Story 29. When he has a chat practically with himself, and after a few polite and basic exchange of info, he keeps pointing out how you wrote in your profile you're looking for the serious type and that he's super serious, that you two should definitely date, etc. Then a few days later, he texts you again, angrily, asking if you wanted a serious guy, why the hell didn't you bother texting back afterwards? And he reassures you he's super serious. It keeps going like that for another 10 minutes. The next day, I receive yet another series of texts in which he, angrily again, keeps going on about how bad of a person I am for not answering, that I'm like all the other girls, that I'm an awful person. And he ends the conversation with literally this line: "Okay, my name. Would you please give me your number now?" I laughed at that for half an hour, bothered responding that no, I wasn't going to do that. Not because I'm an awful person, but because he proved to me he was straight up the obsessive-aggressive type instead, and that he probably should work on that before looking for girlfriends. I had a good laugh about it, but it scares me to think how there are guys and girls like that out there. They just assume that you own them because they're being nice to you. I always get the feeling these types of people are the ones who could actually end up ending their girlfriends for very stupid reasons or assumptions they made up in their heads. Eventually. So yeah, pretty creepy. Story 30. When someone randomly assumes you know them just because they know you, it can be quite awkward. I had a situation when I was younger where I went to the dentist with my mom. Like 4 people I recognized from school were there. I leaned over to my mom and whispered, "Mom, there are a bunch of people from school here." Because, small world. But I was being quiet so as to not be rude to the other people waiting. All of a sudden, this kid sitting right behind us, the seats we were sitting in were back to back, turns around and loudly proclaims himself to be one of the people I recognize, even though I had no clue who he was. He then just interjected himself into our conversation. Sure enough, I started noticing him around school, and I guess since he got his confirmation that I knew who he was, I literally had to sneak a peek at a piece of homework in his hand to learn his name, though he knew mine. He started being very, very forward, hugging me and stuff. Eventually, he asked me out and I awkwardly agreed, but a week later, he declared his love for me. And I broke it off because he clearly likes me a lot more than I liked him. He ran out of the room crying. He had started skipping his classes to stalk outside mine. Then I was the bad guy for making such a nice guy upset. He continued following me still, but the counselors wouldn't do anything because we were 2 weeks from the end of the school year. Luckily, he got the message when he walked up behind me in the halls and I booked it across the school. Story 31. I used to work the night shift, alone, at a local convenience store in the town I used to live in. Keep in mind this was a small town, so about 80% of the customers we'd get in the middle of the night or early morning were regulars. There were 2 male customers, both regulars in particular, that would do very distinct things to make me feel uncomfortable or creeped out. The first guy, as soon as he came in, would always give me a big, unnerving smile and stare at me incessantly, like super intense, nearly no blinking type staring. It was impossible to escape and always made me feel very awkward. The second guy was very loud and obnoxious. He was infamous among all of us who worked there, including the manager, and every single young female worker would ask us to either give him his product for free or go on a date with him. And once you were visibly uncomfortable, he would laugh and give the same BS excuse about how he was just joking and that his wife would end him but he had to try. Kind of contradictory. So I guess those boil down to unnecessary and intense staring and continuing to obnoxiously flirt in a way that, literally from experience, makes people feel uncomfortable. And the most basic thing behind both of those, I think, is this. If you notice the signs and still consciously choose to keep pushing, it comes across as a blatant disregard for one's boundaries. The creepiness comes from the fear of the potential danger that sort of behavior might lead to. Story 32. I worked at a tobacco or convenience store as a cashier to support myself during college. Because I worked alone, my friends would often come in and stay with me because I was being pestered so frequently. The shop was located near my campus and across the street from a bar, which meant I had to deal with many, many unsettling comments and situations over the years. It wasn't just college students either. There were high school kids with fake IDs, cigar-puffing grandpas, town drinkers, and every person in between. I always felt as though I couldn't report any of these incidents because my manager often bragged to another male employee about hiring me because of my appearance, saying that I was great for business. There were also so many problem customers that I wouldn't even know where to begin if I did try to take action. And because I didn't have a car, it was the highest paying job within walking distance and I really needed the money. As far as creepiness goes, it wasn't just the comments about my attractiveness. The nauseatingly persistent romantic pursuits, the lingering stares, the cell phone numbers I never asked for, or the inquiries about how close my apartment was. All of that became easy enough to deal with after some time passed. For me, it was simply the feeling of being treated like I was just another item in the store that could be acquired. What made it worse was that many of these men only acted this way when I was alone, meaning that they were capable of showing restraint. They just chose not to when they knew I was the only one in the store. Somehow, the presence of another person was enough to make most of them act more respectfully towards me, but my existence alone rarely merited such decorum. It's been over a year since I quit, and clocking out for the last time was one of the most liberating moments I've ever experienced in my life. But it pains me to know that so many women go through this, especially while working in customer service. My advice to bystanders is to always look for signs of distress or discomfort, especially when a worker is in an establishment alone. Sometimes your presence or intervention can be enough to prevent a bad situation from escalating. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.